Hello, everybody. Well, it's Wednesday. It's the 4th of November, which is the day after the 3rd of November. I think we're still waiting, although I haven't looked at the news in a while. Anyway, this is about HF remote operating and how do I set my station up to do some remote operating. It's the really basics, but I often get asked for the parts, what do I need to worry about? Where do I need to start? I know about SmartLink, but the rest of it's really foreign. And what do I need to do to be able to run an HF remote station? So this is just some very basic groundwork, and there's a lot of things we are not going to touch upon, um, but there's some key things that we will touch upon. It's very important to make sure that this is a station that you can depend on. So here we go. So I actually have a slideshow. It's going to be not quite death by PowerPoint. Actually, it's a bit of death by Google Slides. I thought I'd try that, and it worked out okay. So without any further ado, hey Andy and Martin, good afternoon, and I hope there's something everybody can get out of this. Now, I appreciate not everybody can watch this live, so you can email me at va3mikewhiskey at flexradio.com if you have any questions or to go a bit further. My job is to provide you some guidance and some groundwork, and we can go from there. So let's see how this works. First time I've tried this. So the goal is we're going to control some AC power. How do we turn things on and off? We're going to maybe control some DC power, how to soft power down the radio. And more importantly, is the thing that always happens to everybody is their internet fails one way or another. So we'll touch on that. For some of you, this is not a big deal. If you work in the IT industry or you're responsible for repeaters or something like that, you've been through all this. You've lived this nightmare. You've left the repeater site and gotten home and realized you forgot to turn something on and go all the way back up. So hopefully we can eliminate some of those steps. Mr. Mitchell, good day. And how are you? Actually, I think we'll just get Andy to teach this. And Andrew, hello from Namibia again. And Andrew got to use some remote Flex Radio stuff in his shopping days with me. We let him let him access to one of the remote radios. So again, very basic, very easy. Well, maybe not easy for you, but hopefully we can get you moving forward on it. So, the first part is how do we actually connect to the radio? Well, we use SmartLink. And what is SmartLink? Well, it's the tool that's built into Smart SDR for the PC. It's built into the Maestro. It's built into Smart SDR for iOS, Dog Park SDR, and Smart SDR for Mac. We have some assumptions we're going to make here that all this is connected to the internet, and that's going to be the common component for just about everything, and how we get from one end to the other. Well, it's sort of how we do a lot of it today. That's, in fact, how you're watching me. One of the things I want to stress that bandwidth isn't really the issue. Most of us have, not everybody, but some reasonable internet bandwidth. We've got more than 5 megabits down, more like 10, maybe 50, maybe 500, maybe a gigabit, and some upload. And your upload's going to want to be at least, I'm going to say 2 meg. That's going to give us some headroom, although it can be a lot less. But if you've got 2 meg upload, and that's the key part, then you should be able to make this work. It probably will be a struggle if you're on some wireless ISPs, and there's some small ISPs that are going to make this just a train wreck for you. And we'll tell you, if you're on a smaller ISP that maybe doesn't give you a direct WAN address to your network, your router, and we've already done a video regarding that. So, but if you're not sure, you can always ask us. So the basics, as I said in the beginning, so we get to repeat it again. And if you're ADD like me, you've already skipped to this part, but we have to lay down the groundwork. This is for the occasional remote operator. Maybe you're going to go away from your radio from an hour or two a day, a couple of days, but you're in a position where if something goes wrong, you can get back to it. And let me leak who else joined. Hey, Brian and Edward and Wolfgang. Got some DX from Switzerland and Germany, Michael, Delta Juliet 2 Victor Alpha. And some of the parts I'm going to show you this are North America centric. I'm hoping that with with all our hams worldwide, they can point to different things in different continents that would maybe fill the same thing. And please comment on that either here, but even more importantly, over in the Flex community, there's a whole Smart Link remote area. Great place to, share with people what works. So we have, it's maybe your house. So you're going to go to your summer house, your cottage, your friend's place for the weekend, but you still want to get on the air. You've only got one or two antennas, or one or two antennas is good enough for you, so you can leave that the way you found it. And you have no rotors you need to worry about, no amplifiers, or etc. So we want to keep that really simple. If you've got a G5 RV up in the air, or some vertical, or an 8040 trap dipole, and maybe some tri-band antenna system for 8040 or 20, 10, and 15. This will get you going, and we want you to do baby steps to get going, because you're going to build on this. You want to make this part rock solid before you start throwing everything else at it. I have customers that have called me and go, I've set it up, my amps remote, my antennas, they've got everything, and then it explodes and it doesn't work well. So we're going to start the beginning. So like I said, preferably about 1.6 megabit to 2 megabit. That actually should be a little m. Upload speed to cable, DSL, or fiber. Wireless, Starlink, is that the new system? Who knows? They're claiming 20 milliseconds latency. And the big thing here, by the way, isn't necessarily your bandwidth. You can have a 500 megabit connection and it could still be terrible. It's the latency numbers that we really want to be consistently about the same, of about, let's say under 100 milliseconds. 200 milliseconds is starting to get long, but under 100 milliseconds is fine. You can run a contest with that, certainly no problem rag chewing. We have Wolfgang there, and Enzo and Pierre. I'm looking here. Welcome, Pierre's the new owner. And I have to look over at a different screen to see those, so they're not necessarily in front of me. I'm going to talk about a Casa web switch we actually sell. It connects by Wi-Fi. And if you've listened to me long enough, you know I can't stand Wi-Fi as a reliable thing, but it works. Obviously, a Flex 6000 series radio, if you're using some other remote system, you'll need to deal with that vendor, but the concept's still the same. And everything on the same LAN subnet. And we talked about this in a previous network video. And what that really means is the first three, they're called octets. 192.168.100, 192.168.1. I think there's a 1010 series in there, but you want the first three to all be the same, and the last, the XXX from 1 to 254, would be different, because that would be each different computer. This is called a subnet, and all our devices want to be on that subnet. If you're using a mesh like an Eros, a TP-Link M5 or M9, a Google network, they will do this for you, but you want to be in a bridge mode operation. Again, beyond the scope of today's conversation, but something to be aware of. And the reason you want everything on the same subnet is so that the radio can communicate with everything equally. Again, without going into depth, if they're on, and you can hook this up, by the way, let me back up. You can hook up a mesh network you got off of Amazon or somewhere, and it'll just work fine, except for your radio. And there's a very good reason why, and why bridging it really helps eliminate those little nightmares, especially if you have no network knowledge. And don't let the network scare you. It's not really complicated. It's one or two key things, and then you could be a good enough network guru to be your own IT administrator in your house. And I know, Wolfgang, there's whole VPN things. I'm not going to bring up VPNs. That's not the scope of this conversation. That's sort of an advanced networking. And if you already know how to do VPNs, I guarantee that most of this conversation you'll probably will not learn much. So some of the basics, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to have one or two feed lines, because any of the Flex 6000 radios can control two feed lines right within Smart SDR. We're not going to have an amplifier. We're not going to have a rotator. We're going to be able to soft power down the radio if we have to, with the RCA connector on the back. And the description of that's in the Smart SDR manual, but it's a very simple, it's like a switch. We're just going to open it, or close it. And when it's closed, the radio turns on. And when the switch is opened, the radio will politely shut down. We're going to mention another web switch, the same actually one. You can use it to plug your power supply into to turn it on and off. And then a box I've never tested, and I'm open to suggestions of internet devices that are easy to set up. And you don't have to build it in a Raspberry Pi, because if you can do that, again, that's beyond the scope of today's conversation. I found one. There is the Digital I/O Logger one, which I mentioned, but incredibly, I thought, overwhelming for a really new user to this type of work to set up. So this is the TP-Link Casa Smart Switch. It looks like any smart switch you may have seen. It doesn't have to be this one. You can get them in 100 different varieties even in Home Depot or Amazon. But you probably want to be able to have something that your Android phone or iPhone can talk to. And generally, if it's good for Alexa or Google or something like that, then you can hook this all up, walk away, and push a display on your screen, and it'll turn on and off. So one of these we're going to use to turn the power supply on and off. I don't turn my power supplies on and off, but if this is important to you, you can add this. Not a requirement. And by the way, I have a diagram at the end of this so you can see what it looks like. Now we sell this item in the store. It's this whole solution. It's a bit overkill, but it's something you can plug and play. We actually sell a lot of them. This is a soft power control, and it's another TP-Link Casa Smart Wi-Fi outlet, and it allows you to those two wires you see coming off up here. They go to an RCA connector. It plugs right in the back of the radio, and in the setup for the radio, you turn the remote control button on. It's under setup. Pretty straightforward. Everybody does it that is doing remote. It allows them to soft cycle the radio if you need to. Now, this is the thing I've never tested. I've read the reviews. It seems to work. This Net Reset digital timer from Amazon, they're $49 US. I'm sure there's 50 or 60 other versions of the same thing around. What it does is, if your internet seems to disappear, so it just actually pings, ping being a very basic level of communication. It just pings something like, I don't know, Google or CNN or Yahoo or whatever. And if they go away, then it thinks that the modem's in a state where it's not working. Now, normally you'd be at home and your internet would go out and your kids are yelling at you and the Netflix isn't working. You'd pick up the phone and call your internet service provider. And of course, the first thing they're going to say is, have you power cycled your modem? Well, now you can say, yes, you did. And it even happened automatically. So this is the one I found for about $50. If anybody's actually using one that's very easy to set up, it's got a good price, please share it in any of the dialogues we have going. It would help out the next user. And by the way, there's not many slides here, so we're not going to be going for a long time. Now, so we've handled the AC power to the radio. We've the soft power for the radio. We've got SmartLink going, and we're pretty much done there. Now I got some highly recommended stuff, and this is even for the more advanced users. If you're going away longer than 2 days or a weekend or a week, or you're heading into a month, or maybe your radio is just not anywhere near where you live, maybe it's a 2-hour drive away like mine is, I highly recommend you leave a personal computer running at that location on the same network. Preferably Windows, but it doesn't have to be, but I have my reasons. And this allows you as a user to connect to a PC, that's assuming your internet's up, of course, and behave like being there should you happen to do need to do some diagnostics. But more importantly, you could put all your digital programs on here. So you can run WJST by doing a remote desktop, and that's not a really scary thing. And it just runs all local, like you were still sitting at the computer where your radio is. And this also does a couple of great things, is it offloads any internet latency issues, because once we send data over the internet, we really don't know what's going to happen between the minute it leaves our property and it arrives to our new property. It can be buffered. There's a whole, I can go through about 40 different things that will cause it to not be as perfect as it was when it left. doing it this way is, say we were running WSJT. Well, you know what? I don't have to set it up on another computer. I just bring up the WSJT application and on the remote computer, and I run it. And I'll have Andy type in here. We actually ran CQ Worldwide contesting. I was local to my radio. He was the other operator, and that's exactly how he ran CQ Worldwide for logging and cluster and a whole bunch of stuff just by running remote desktop. But there's a bunch of different programs to do that. There's actually hundreds. Chrome Remote Desktop, I've never used it, but many people have. TeamViewer is very common. It's a very well-known name, but they do have a habit of deciding that you're a commercial user. Sorry, you don't get access anymore. I've really started to like AnyDesk. It's free for home use. You just have to remember the 8 or 9 digit number, and once you set that up the first time, it never changes. Then if you're a little tech savvy, you can use some direct connect tools like VNC, Real VNC, Microsoft Desktop. If you don't know what that means, or direct connect, don't worry about it. That's not the tool for you right now. And there's a whole bunch of others. But I'll honestly say too, if you're away longer now than 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and you really want to decide to upgrade your firmware, you can use this remote PC. And a bunch of different things too. And I like it because it really keeps a lot of data off the internet and keeps your performance good. And so that's pretty critical. And there's Wolfgang saying AnyDesk looks great. Yeah, Andy, I do have a line item for that. So thanks for stealing my thunder. So why the remote PC? Well, we talked about the remote digital modes. It's a nice debug tool if you have to. Say you had to call us for some reason, and you're in Florida and your radio's in North Dakota, and we're setting up again for a more complicated station. You know, we might say, geez, can you see inside your own network, because your radio's maybe disappeared off a network or something. It allows us to get a little more diagnostic information. Put it on a UPS and make sure it reboots when you power cycle. I highly recommend Windows 10 Pro for the extra $100. It's little better built, I think. I'm pretty happy with Windows 10. I've never had an issue. Yes, there are horror stories all over the place about sound drivers and this and that. Those are pretty much resolved. And you can also control your updates, so it's not updating, at 10 o'clock on a Friday of a 48-hour contest you want to work on. But it's if you bought a computer from Costco and it came with Windows 7 Home, just go pay to upgrade it. It's just better. I've been running HF Remote for about 15 years. I started maybe a bit longer, about 2005 or 2004. I've had a lot of things take me off the air for an extended period of time. Touch wood. In those 15 years, it's never been the PC. So the PC automatically reboots if the power disappears or if the UPS runs out of power during a power interruption. I don't actually have any antivirus because I don't use the computer for anything other than this. It's already behind a firewall, so it's safe on my router firewall. And so what's Chris saying? Remote PC is ideal for multi-op. Yeah, exactly. So Chris is right. These, by the way, between Andy Mitchell, Chris Tate, and a bunch of other people, are really good resources for remoting. We all have a career in it. And even on the remote PC, you can start FrStack or SliceMaster, or as a remote person, what I like using a lot is the Ray's, I got to remember what he calls it. It's the SWR program. I think it's SWR 6K or 6K SWR or something like that. And I use it because my 160 antenna, which is a big vertical, it will start to shift up in frequency at this time of the year as the ground freezes. And it tells me if it's moving. It's been a fun study. So that's pretty good. Richard's comment about a 4x4 inch Nook computers are great if you wanted to leave something here. A good but old laptop that you pull a physical hard drive out, spend $50, buy an SSD drive, and build it clean and decrapify it, and you'll be good to go. It's really worth the investment. We've got so much invested in your station right now. This is just an incredibly useful tool, and there's a lot more it can do here that that I haven't got into because I certainly do not want to overwhelm you. So this is sort of what it looks like. And I've left out all antenna stuff, but so we got the modem coming in, and the lines just tie together the key parts. It goes into a switch and over to the radio. If we had a PC, it would be connected to the LAN switch. And by the way, sometimes these modems, Wi-Fi, and you see the Wi-Fi out of here as well, are all one device, and that's okay. We have the web switch, which is connected by Wi-Fi that the power supply is plugged into. We got another one that's got the digital logger device to soft power cycle the radio. And we got this the device to power cycle the modem if we really need to. What do I use here? I actually use a Raspberry Pi with a little script that toggles it, digital I/O stuff. But I was building this before before we needed it, or before there was anything off the shelf, and it just had to work. Now we're seeing more and more of this available, where it's very inexpensive and you can get it off Amazon, delivered, tomorrow. Just, it's almost like the Roadrunner when he was building stuff to catch, or the Coyote when he was trying to catch the Roadrunner, right? He'd order stuff from Acme, it would be there right away. Guess that was Amazon. And don't forget to test all this. I can't tell you we've had so many customers that, I set up SmartLink, it works at home. I flew to Florida, it doesn't work anymore. Well, did you even test it at the end of the driveway or, well, no. And so it's really hard to go fix that way. So test it. So test if you're away. Kill the power. Plug it in. Make sure everything comes up the way it is, because I guarantee you'll have a problem. I do a lot with sports and actually ski racing and timing. And when we do it for television for a World Cup event, we actually have a test where somebody walks into the building we're timing because we're feeding data to television and everything. We walk into that building and we actually pull the main breaker. They clunk. And because we still have to keep timing if the power goes out. And we want to make sure that we can still time, So Murphy was an optimist. Take the time, yank the cord, and make sure it works. So as we get on in this, okay, you get this all working. This is what stuff can look like. We have the Node-RED dashboard over which I built, and others have joined. We have a whole group talking about how to control a bunch of different switches and unique things, from steppers to rotors to whatever, and you can go join that. Go over to groups.io, and if you just search for Node-RED, it's the first group that comes up. The Power Genius amplifier, works really well in this situation that I set up. I use a 4x8, a 2x8 antenna switch for all my antennas. Works good on a 6600. 403A does make a 1x7 or 1x8 as well that integrates right into Flex stuff. We don't sell it, but you can order it from 403A or Vibraplex in North America, 403A in Europe. And if you get this going, now you can start to look at where I'm at today with things here. I'm amazed at how well the Node-RED stuffs work, because during CQ Worldwide we had 4 people staring at this panel, and it showed the power out from the PGXL amplifier. And by the way, this power reading's from the actual watt meter. My LP100 watt meter wasn't from the Power Genius, which was sort of handy. And I like being able to see it from different areas, but that's just me. And that's it. And that's sort of the short shopping list you may require to get, the basic remote operation. And it's fun. And the integration, I think, is cool. A cool hobby for me. I love doing it. I think as hams, we like doing it. Now, is there a plug and play version of this? Where I could go buy a box and it shows up and I can get to it from a web page and turns everything on and off? Not yet. I know several people would love to have one. If one comes available, you'll be the second to know. I've reached out to many people who are sort of in that sort of industry and said, hey, we could really use one. So they're thinking about it. And, maybe it would turn AC power on and off, do all this, control a stepper or a OptiBeam or another rotor or whatever is the most common stuff, and maybe expandable. The question is, how much would you pay for it? Because it's, that's where it all comes to. Yeah, and Wolfgang multi-user at a remote site. Again, beyond the scope of what I want to talk about this time, it does work. You can run multiple users and stuff. You can run multiflex. You can run multiple radios. That's certainly very possible. And reach out to Chris or Andy. They'll tell you what they've set up. Andy has a big Andy Mitchell, a big the Mississauga Amateur Radio Club set up that way. I think they've got 2 radios in there now. Chris Tate's, I don't know what Chris and Andreas have set up. It's a big mega remote stuff station they contest with, and there's a bunch of guys. So questions, please go to the community under SmartLink or remote, and there'll be lots of cool stuff there that you can find, or if you have any questions, ask them. And I don't want it in Facebook. I really want it over there, because there people can search on it. We can find it. We can build on answers and come up with better stuff. So I wish everybody a great day. Thanks for listening. I hope this has given you some clues. And if you have any questions, you can email me at info@flexradio.com, or my call sign VA3 Mike Whiskey at flexradio.com. We'll try to help you out. We won't build it for you. It's just sort of beyond the scope of what we can provide, but we're happy to provide guidance. And so are all these Elmers that are here within the Flex Radio community. Take care, 73. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time, whenever that is. Take care.